My name is Jamie Love. Welcome to my Ageless Beauty channel. I will be going live today with Loren Lockman. He's a world-renowned fasting expert. He runs the Tanglewood Retreat Center in Costa Rica, which is the world's largest fasting retreat center. And we're going to be going head deep into fasting and learning about it, the benefits, why we need to fast. So Loren has a lot of amazing things to share. We did go live once before to talk about the ideal raw food diet. Today we're going to be talking about fasting, so grab a blanket, grab your juice. Well, Loren doesn't do juicing, but your fruit, and snuggle up and get cozy because we're going to dive into it. All right, let's get Loren on here. If you have any questions for Loren, please type them in the chat.
Hi there.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I can't see you.
You can't?
No. It's okay. It's okay. But is my head not cut off or anything?
No. Your head seems to be attached to your shoulder.
I knew you were going to say some kind of joke.
Yeah. Can you still not,
What happened?
can you still not see me?
No, I don't think I'm going to be able to, but it's okay.
Okay.
Can everybody else see both of us?
I can see both of us.
Okay, good. That means everybody else can too.
Can you see both of us or no?
I just see myself, but I like to look at myself, so it's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome. It's so amazing to connect with you again, Loren.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you at now? I can't see where you're at.
I'm currently in Sarasota, Florida.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Where should we start? Would you like to, because a lot of people who might be tuning in may not have heard your story. They may not know who you are on this channel. So why don't you just share a little bit about yourself and how you found fasting? And then we'll kind of get into what fasting, what it is and the benefits.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see. 40 years ago, I had graduated from school and was about this 6 months after graduating 40 years ago. And it was about that time I found myself quite ill. In fact, I going back one day for my fifth or sixth cup of coffee before lunch and realized I think I might be caffeine. And I wasn't willing to be. So I stopped drinking coffee. Before long, realized how completely exhausted I was. Turns out I was later diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic sinusitis, systemic candida, and 7 hours. And I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. That I moved back. Was the youngest officer of the second largest commercial real estate company in the city, and was working pretty hard. But I was exhausted. I actually bought a house a mile from the office so I could wake up at 8:30 and be in the office. And I would leave the office by 5 and would go home and go to bed, basically. So at 23, I spent most of my rest, and all I knew was conventional medicine. So for the next year, I went to a doctor. I followed the directions, took antibiotics for the sinus infections. I refused to take all the allergies. The rest of the stuff they told me did not exist. Okay, chronic fatigue didn't exist, irritable bowel syndrome didn't exist, and candida didn't exist. Again, this is 40 years ago. And so I did what they said.
Hold on, Loren. Someone's saying audio, and it is chopping up for me a little bit.
Oh.
I wasn't sure if they could hear too. I don't want to interrupt you, but are you anywhere like close to what happened?
Better, I see just better video here. It might just be my Wi-Fi, and I'm sorry, there's not much I can do about that.
Okay, just continue. We'll make do.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. Hopefully we can.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't realize that was so bad. Maybe it'll get better. So at the end of the year, I was worse off than I was when I started. And I thought, okay, this doctor doesn't know. I'm going to go find another doctor. I did that at the end of the year, same thing. And I once more got another doctor. At the end of the third year, I thought, okay, medicine is these doctors are doing their best, but they really don't have an idea. And that's when it occurred to me that medicine was simply about suppressing symptoms. Now, this is probably obvious to many people who watch you regularly, right? Who maybe watch.
Hopefully.
Don't realize this, right? Someone said to me recently, when I responded to their comment, that says, "You're dissing medicine." I'm like, well, yeah, I know. Medicine kills more people than anything on the planet right now. I mean, officially, third leading cause of death. But a lot of the people with cancer and heart disease who die because of their treatment. So I would say it's actually one. Anyway, at that point, I was lost. I was 26 years old. I was sicker than anyone I knew. Medicine had not worked for me. I didn't really know where else to turn. And so, long story short, I won't go through the whole history because we want to focus on fasting. But ultimately, I tried homeopathy and herbs and naturopathy and chiropractic and even acupuncture. Nothing helped me. And so I finally, here I'm looking for some way to get my health back. I finally discovered fasting. And it turns out, first of all, I think there's a couple of foundational pieces that I think are important. The first one is that, in fact, I'll set this up. You know, I see this all over social media. I'm sure you do too, Jamie. People saying that juices healed them, or raw food healed them, or carnivore diet healed them, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Very common.
The simple fact is that healing is a biological process. Okay, I was in Belfast, Ireland, many years ago doing a full-day seminar. I said to the group, "There's only one thing on the planet that can heal your body." And a hopeful voice from the back of the room said, "You?" No, it's not me. It's only your body can heal your body. Okay, so people say to me all the time, "Well, there's only one way to heal." I said, "You're absolutely right. There isn't only one way. But here's the thing: we're going to heal. The degree to which we heal and the speed with which we heal depends entirely on the degree to which we can get out of the body's way. Because healing is something only the body can do. The more we're out of the way, the faster the body can heal. Well, what happens in nature? 25 million animal species all lay down and stop eating when sick enough or badly enough injured. Healing is nature's way of allowing the organism the optimal conditions to heal itself. And the reason this is so important, and I mean, again, I know there are people going, "Yeah, but you need nutrients to heal." Not so much, okay? We don't. Every species stops eating. Your cat or dog, if it gets sick enough, will lay down and refuse to eat. And, it's not that they can't get to the food, because I've heard that a million times. You can put the food right in front of them, they won't touch it. They instinctively know, okay? The reason for this is very simple. First of all, again, I think a couple of clarifications are important. We don't run on food, okay? We use food as the fuel to make electricity. We run on electricity, okay? So I did eat just before getting on here with you. That was my breakfast. It's 4 o'clock here. That's what I do every day. I mean, it's between 2 and 4, depending on what calls I have that day. And before I've done that, I've worked out quite a bit. I've already spoken to 35 clients today. I mean, yeah, I do group calls, and I've done a lot. I've been working since 5:30 this morning, and this is true almost every day. Okay, it's not the food that we need to have energy, because we're running on electricity. My body made that electricity last night, and there was some from before that. Okay, when people feel bad when they skip a meal and they think, well, it's because I haven't eaten, they're right, but it's not the lack of calories or nutrients. It's the fact that not eating allows their body to begin detoxifying at a much faster rate. I'm going to close this.
And they start to think that because they didn't eat, they're tired or worn down, or they need energy, and then they take more food in, which slows down the healing process all over again.
Exactly. So every species instinctively knows that because healing and detoxification, cleansing to the degree that's necessary, because these processes require so much energy, we don't have the energy to process food as well. That takes about half the body's energy. Okay? And so every species instinctively fasts. That's important, okay? Because anything else we do isn't giving the body the same degree of rest. And done properly. I mean, someone said to me this morning, said, well, it sounds great, but I don't know if I can do 21 days. I still have to work every day. I said, no, you definitely can't do 21 days then. Okay. Fasting is about resting completely. The reason Tanglewood will be 29 years old in about 2.5, 3 months. Okay. We're close to 29 years old. And we've stayed full for that time because people understand they have to come, put everything else on hold. They can't be working. They can't be living their, because again, the whole point is to conserve the body's energy so the body can use that energy to cleanse and heal. So it doesn't work if we're trying to live our normal life. It's not really.
Right. Right. So they're not only healing physically, but by leaving and going to Tanglewood and detaching from the matrix and getting off social media and being out in nature and being around people who are also fasting and healing, it's just a full transformation that they're getting.
That's right. Let me say this. If you're willing to rest as much as you need to and get the amount of water you need, you will see the physical results. And of course, it's different for everyone. I can't say, well, everyone's going to have the exact same result because each body is different. The level of toxicity is different. Your genetic inheritance is different. How much vitality you have depends on how much you'll heal. All these things. Okay. But if you rest as completely as possible and you get enough water, your body's going to heal physically to whatever extent it's capable of healing in the amount of time you give it to heal. Physically and emotionally, in order to see the most benefits there, it really depends on whether you're willing to do what you need to do. Now, fortunately, you don't do that, but
you don't what?
You don't need to do very much. But
right.
But there are things you need. Here, actually, it's not that there are things you need to do. It's that there's nothing that you should be doing. Right?
Which is very uncomfortable for some people, right? It can be very, feel very.
I've now guided more than 11,000 people through fast, averaging 26 days. Okay? And again, this might be, we haven't really clarified yet what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is water only. For most people, the average client is nearly 4 weeks, just water. Okay. Right now, and in most sessions, I've got 3, 4 people that are doing 40 days or longer. Anyone can do that if they're coachable and willing to do what they need to do. It's not easy, but the hardest part for most of those 11,000 people, the hardest part is being with themselves if they're really resting. Because what most of us have done is kept ourselves distracted, look for ways to suppress those emotions with food, drugs, alcohol, pornography, social media, whatever, anything so we don't have to actually feel our emotions. And what I would say is, it's the physical benefits we see are nothing short of amazing. Literally things that most people would call miracles. And I can give you thousands of examples, except we might run out of time. So let me talk about just a few things. For instance, medicine still says if you have hypertension, you're going to be on drugs for the rest of your life. In other words, you can't heal from high blood pressure. We have fasted well over 1,200 people. I think it's closer to 1,500 people with hypertension. We have several people there now. Every single person radically reduces their blood pressure. And so far, all but 3 have brought their blood pressure down below normal, which normal is not healthy. Normal just average. Okay. Medicine says, things like normal is good. It's not. We can do much better than that. We get most people down to a truly healthy level. In fact, all but 3 people so far have completed the process. And some of those, one of them is already planning his next fast with me, and his blood pressure will continue to come down in the time after the fast because it depends on getting all the garbage out of the body, which can take you weeks or even months to do after you're done. So there's an example. Type 2 diabetes. Again, this is more obvious probably to many people who follow you or I, but most of the world out there still thinks you're on medication for the rest of your life. We have 100% success in eliminating type 2 diabetes. We see more conditions. Most conditions are eliminated.
Because type 2 diabetes is diet induced. That's where it comes from.
It's
right?
It's over 97%, I think, correlated to obesity. Because the more excess fat you carry, which of course is related to diet, but the more excess fat you carry, the more insulin resistant you're going to be. So type 1 diabetes, for anyone who may not know the distinction, type 1 is where your body, it's called insulin dependent. Your pancreas is not making the insulin it needs, so you have to take it. Type 2 diabetes is insulin resistant. Your body's making the insulin, but somehow it's not doing the job it needs to do. Okay? And again, this is largely obesity. And in fact, I mean, probably anybody, if they lost the weight, could lose the diabetes. Okay? We see it happen 21 days every single time so far for nearly 29 years. Wow. And we see amazing things with almost everything. I mean, we see almost everybody with low GI tract problems. We see people with arthritis. We had a guy who was 24 years on painkillers because of his arthritis. He came and fasted with me for 26 days. And this was 7 years ago, as far as I know. Since day 11 or 12 of his fast, he's been pain-free.
Wow, 26 years of medication gone in how many days? How many days?
24 years medication, 26 days fasting.
Oh, wow.
And it's gone.
Wow.
Let me tell you what might be the craziest one so far. I had a client who was Californian, was in a car accident, her fault. She was texting and driving. She drove her car off an embankment, rolled the car down the embankment. Fortunately for her, her nephew, who was in the car with her, was completely unharmed. She broke her neck from here down. Okay. She could move her arms, but she couldn't use her hands. She was considered quadriplegic. Okay.
Oh, God.
Used her lower body. By the time she fasted with me, it had been 4 years and 3 months.
She was quadriplegic for 4 years before she fasted with you?
Yes.
Okay.
And medicine says if you're paralyzed for more than 2 years, there's zero chance of healing. Can't happen. Okay? She could not eliminate, prior to her fast, without mechanical assist, have a bowel movement. She couldn't do it on her own. She couldn't do anything on her own, really. Couldn't use her hands, couldn't feel anything below here. Okay? By the end of her fast, she could feel her spine. She was having bowel movements by herself, and she can now pick up a glass and drink from it.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Now, she wanted to go longer. Her stepmother, who was a doctor, who was fasting with me remotely. She was at home. The doctor forced her to stop, and then afterwards,
forced her to stop fasting
because the doctor was sure she was harming herself. Here's the crazy thing: she had something like 28 or 30 reconstructive surgeries after the accident. I don't know how many IVs she must have had every time she was in the hospital, right? Saline solution. So the doctor forced her to stop, put her on saline, gave her IVs, and when she had these amazing benefits, said, well, that was because of the IVs, not because of fasting.
The doctor said this?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
She's going to fast with me again, but she's waiting until she can get out of her father where the doctor can't control her.
What is her age?
She's got to be about 35 or 36 now, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so again,
that's a miracle, though.
Yeah, absolutely. But almost everything can heal. I mean, that's the crazy thing, right? Medicine says all kinds of things can heal, and of course they say that because using their own protocols, people aren't healing. Again, I don't think this is news to you. I think we've talked about this before, but medicine never heals anyone. Okay, all medicine is designed to do is to suppress symptoms, which is only not healing. It's actually the antithesis to healing. Let me give you an example. Okay, now cancer is a difficult situation. We're dealing right now with 4 or 5 people with cancer. Some of those people will heal. Some of those people may not. Okay, sometimes it's too little, too late. Okay, whatever is going on in the body, if we wait too long to address it, it might be difficult for the body to be able to recover. But our amazing bodies were intended to function at an incredibly high level. Okay, and since we're talking about this now, I'll just say here, I think you've heard me say this before, but some of the listeners may not have. Right, I went from being the sickest person I knew at 26. I'm now 63 and have not been sick one day in 37 years, ever since I took over.
Wow.
Not a single day. Now,
Wow.
Friday will be my 33rd anniversary living on fruit and salad. And I have people telling me on Instagram, well, you're not going to be healthy after 10 years as a vegan. I'm like, it's been nearly 40 already. I'm
Wow.
doing fine.
That's really inspiring.
So our bodies are meant to function at this incredibly high level. I mean, and I'm talking about complete mental clarity, tons of energy, like bounding out of bed every day, like unstoppable energy, right? Emotional balance, much greater for me than I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying I don't have work to do, but it's much better than it was before. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only state that makes me, I can't compare myself to you. Okay. You might be 18 smarter than I am. Probably a tiny bit prettier than me. There's no comparison. What I'm
Right.
comparing myself to is how am I doing relative to my own potential? Because I realized a long time ago. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful having gotten so sick at 23, because if it happened now, I mean, when I was in Southern California, when we last saw each other, I had a bit of a reunion. A bunch of high school buddies, all surfers, moved from the East Coast to Encinitas, and they lived together in a house. And there was a reunion while I was there. It was my best friend from high school, a kid I grew up with and had known since we were like, 6. We weren't we weren't that close, but we've known each other 7 years now. And 3 or 4 other guys I went to high school with. And we were all there. One of them now has MS. One of them now has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which there is no known cure for. I've been trying to convince them to come fast with me. I mean, this is what happens to most people. People start to get sick. I don't know how many people I school with have already died of cancer. Okay, this is what happens to people. It doesn't have to happen to anyone. We can be incredibly healthy. And fasting is simply, remember, the best way to get out of the body's way. So the self-healing, self-cleansing body can do what only the body can do. Medications can never do those things. People tell me all the time, well, yeah, but I've got hypertension. I can't just stop taking the drugs. And I'll say, oh, really? Why not? I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, but hypertensive drugs statistically don't increase a person's lifespan by 1 day. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
They have all kinds of side effects because they're toxic substance. What they do is they give you better numbers. My father, for years, no, my blood pressure is fine. He didn't tell me he was on 5 different medications.
Wow.
He wouldn't talk. I knew how I felt about that.
That's the hard thing about family,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's unfortunate. In a few days, we will observe the 14th anniversary of my father's death. He had attacks and then stroke. All while medication.
Yeah. I went on my health journey when I was about 18 because my aunt got cancer. And my mom and I started fasting, and we started eating plant-based, and we tried to teach her and tried to get her on board, and she wouldn't. She actually just passed away last year. She had battled cancer on and off for 20 years, and she watched me grow, she watched me heal, she watched me transform. It wasn't enough.
No, I mean, people have the amazing ability to believe whatever they want to. And I'll give you a quick example of this. We had a client years ago. I knew her because I was a keynote speaker twice for a big nonprofit organization that supported. And I spoke at a couple other of their events where I wasn't a keynote speaker, just a speaker. But in fact, there was another event that she also supported where I was a speaker several years in a row. And so I got to know her pretty well. She was very unhealthy, and she was overweight. She had very thick glasses. She had bad skin. She had all kinds of issues. And I finally convinced her to come fast. At the end of her fast, she took a picture that my staff, we used to take pictures before and after everybody. I don't know why we stopped doing that, but she took one of the pictures that we took of her and used it as her Facebook picture. And within a few hours of changing the picture, she had like 25 comments saying, "Oh my God, you look amazing. What did you do?" And it took her about a day to get back to people that started responding faster for 20 days. And people said, the same people who said you look amazing said, "You look skinny.
You look what?
You look too skinny."
Oh, God, because she said she was fasting?
Right.
Oh.
They're way to justify not.
It's
This is what people do. People will
annoying. It's so annoying.
well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I hope you didn't make the same mistake I did. Most people do. When I found fasting and raw vegan diet, I wanted to help everybody I knew, everybody I cared about.
I think everybody initially does that when they first go raw and
Hence
find.
why I tried to do that, right? And I'm shocked to find out people don't actually like things shoved down their throats most of the time. People got pissed off. What I realized was, okay, so my job is to share the information. I'm so happy to do this with you. I'll do any podcast because I love getting the information out there. As I think you know, my old YouTube channel, because Low Life hacked me, changed the password. There's more than 1,000 videos. Okay.
Wow.
My goal is just to get information to as many people as possible because this is life-changing information for people willing to do something with it. My job is not to make them do something with it. My job is not to convince them. It's to give them the information. Anybody who is interested can take that information, check it out themselves, choose to do whatever they want with it. But we can't force people we can't convince anybody of anything against their will. So those people who are convinced, no, I'm never going to change. Okay, that's fine. It's up to you. You do whatever you like. Right? My job is to share the information. So again, I'm very, very happy to be here with you. But yeah,
I'm so happy you're here too. Yeah.
Very, very, very few things that we don't see improving dramatically. And even again, cancer, more than half the time, we see people heal and often healing completely. And I started to talk about cancer because, it's a stark example. Now, I can't prove this. Science says they don't know yet. I believe that the cause of cancer is actually really simple. It's toxicity combined with poor immune function. Because in a healthy body, okay, in our bodies, science tells us that every day there are cancer cells forming, every single day. And yet, as far as I know, neither of us has cancer. Okay, how is it that people avoid getting cancer when cancer cells form every day? Well, the answer is that the body's immune function is able to destroy those cells. It knows that they don't belong, and so it gets rid of them. Okay, so toxicity is a huge piece. I think this is obvious. It's obvious to me. If you smoke cigarettes, if you take toxic particulate matter into your lungs, lung cancer is the most likely outcome. If you put chewing tobacco in your mouth, lip, tongue, or gum cancer is the likely outcome. When farm workers in California, Arizona, Texas, migrant workers come up from Mexico and they get sprayed with pesticides. They're exposed to all these pesticides. They have much higher rates of cancer because of the toxicity. Right. When state troopers on these long stretches of highway in the U.S., what they used to do is they would sit there with the radar gun, not in the holster, but in their lap, so it's much easier to bring it up as soon as they saw a car on the horizon. Okay? They stopped doing that because the radar gun is constantly leaking radiation, and they wound up with very high rates of testicular cancer. So state troopers told, don't hold on to that thing. Put it away. Put it in the holster when you're not using it. Okay? Only pick it up when you need it. So it's clear that toxicity is a major. And again, if the body was healthy enough, what would happen? It would destroy those cells. So it's those two things coming together. Okay. Now we look at conventional cancer treatment. What happens with chemotherapy and radiation? Are we making the body more toxic or less toxic? We're
more toxic.
Increasing toxicity. What happens to immune function? We're decreasing the body's. Okay. Even with surgery, with toxic anesthesia. Okay, and if it's general anesthesia, which it usually is for a major surgery, it can take 4 or 5 days just to shake the intense feelings of exhaustion from the drugs. And it can take much longer to actually get all that garbage out of your body. So again, we have toxicity, reduced immune function. This is what's happening every single time, okay? And so cancer treatment doesn't make anyone healthier. Now, here's the problem. I mean, over the years, I've probably worked with 100 women with breast cancer, the most common cancer for women. The majority of them were women who'd already had cancer, already had conventional, and were told by some doctor, you're perfectly healthy, okay? Because there's no more, you're healthy, you can go live your life. 3 to 5 years later, it comes back much worse than it was the first time. Because what they did was they didn't treat the underlying issue. They didn't reduce the toxicity. Well, they did treat it, the underlying causes. They made them both worse. And so it comes back. Fasting has been proven to dramatically eliminate toxicity and dramatically improve the body's immune function. In fact, you've probably heard the word autophagy.
Which autophagy? Yeah, I love autophagy. It's good for anti-aging.
Autophagy means self-eat. Okay, self-eat. And what the man who coined the term was a Japanese PhD by the name of Yoshinori Osumi, who won the 2016 Nobel Prize for Medicine. He coined that term. What he said was, essentially, the body detoxifies much more rapidly in starvation when we're fasting. Okay? This is what's happening when we're fasting. So rapid detoxification, dramatic improvement. In fact, there's a PhD Italian guy, I can't remember his name right now, who works at the University of California, I think Santa Barbara, Italian guy, who said that 3 or 4 days of fasting completely reboots the body's immune function. And when that was published 6 or 7 years ago, I had a whole bunch of people who were on day 26 of their fast with me, or somewhere in that range. And I said to them, what do you think? And they all thought it was hilarious. Because what had happened for them, I mean, he never fasted anybody more than 3 or 4 days. That's all he had experience with. Having everybody, I fast every year maybe half a dozen people for 5 days. That's the shortest I do. I work with people by the week. It's a 5-day fast for 1 week. But 98% of my clients fast for 21 days or more. And every single one of them would tell you, oh, what happened in the first 3 or 4 days was nothing compared to what happened by the end of the process. It's literally like a joke, saying, oh, that's as good as it can get. That's as good as he's ever seen. It's not as good as it can get. Okay?
So I'm wondering if someone's on the standard American diet and they want to come fast, would you recommend they fast before trying to transition to a healthier diet? Because or just go right into fasting, because if they didn't try to transition and then they did a 21 or 24-day fast, and then after the fast they went right back to their old habits because they didn't.
It's a great question, and I think first of all, I encourage everybody to clean up their diet for at least 3 or 4 weeks before they come. Okay.
Okay.
And I've seen people saying, "Oh, you have to eat. You have to eat clean for you." No, you don't. But it's helpful.
Wait, what did they say? That you said no, you don't?
Sometimes say people on Facebook will say, you have to eat a clean diet for at least a year before you fast.
Oh, okay. Okay. 3-4 weeks is sufficient.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, we fast people all the time who maybe were eating pretty well before, maybe not perfectly, and then make a really bad choice right before, because they'll think, well, after this, I'm going to keep it clean.
I'm not going to be able to eat. I need to eat something before I go fast for how many days.
Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. And we had this. I think they had, I forget what it was, pizza or something like that just before they came. I was like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
Funny story. Funny, not funny. A few years ago, we had a young woman. I do a pre-fast Zoom call with everybody and explain what to do, how to prepare. We also send them 2 PDFs with lots of information once they've registered. And I said to her, you want to keep your diet as clean as possible. It should be high water content, mono fruit meals, simple green salads. Okay. And for anyone who missed the diet piece, this is what I eat for 33 years. This is what I'm completely clear, 100%. This is what's optimal for us. I will occasionally do more gourmet type stuff. We've done that together, you and I, at least at the same place at the same time, if not at the same table. And it's okay, but I feel much better when I don't do that. Maybe you can relate to them. So I give them very, very clear, specific instructions. Also, for someone who's not currently getting enough water, start sipping more water so you get used to that. So it's going to be easier during the process. So I had a woman show up. She was in her 30s. She was still in college, working on her undergrad somehow. I guess she'd taken a bunch of time off. I don't know. Also from California, as it happens. And she begins fasting. Within a couple of days, she's super nauseous, and she begins vomiting multiple times per day. And I said to her, this went on for several days. You know, sometimes it'll pass, like it's whatever, there's something there, and then it's gone. It's continued. And I said to her, did you clean up your diet like I suggested? She said, not exactly. I said, well, what did you do for these last few weeks? She said, for the last few weeks before I came, I only ate donuts.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. It was a disaster.
I'm surprised she was so open and honest with
Yeah.
you.
It was
That's wild.
great. By the way, I mean, we have a lot of clients. Right now normally we're pretty close to full. We've got about 30 people that are fasting right now. Half of them are returning for their second, third, or fourth, and probably
Wow.
were referred by somebody else. Family member. I have a guy coming back for his third fast. He got married since I last saw him. He's bringing his wife and parents, none of whom have fasted before. We have a woman there, one of her best friends, a client. We have a lot of that sort of thing. Most of the time, our clients love their experience and come back. Sometimes I invite them not to. And this woman, she's vomiting every day. I said, if she wasn't getting enough water because drinking made her feel sick, I said, you have to get more water. She's like, I can't. Well, if you don't get more water in, we're going to have to give you electrolytes, which technically breaks your. We'll say, oh no, you can consume coffee, tea, electrolytes. That's fine. And we'll come back to why it's not. But I said, you're going to have to drink electrolytes, and it technically breaks your fast. She said, I won't do it. I said, well, if you don't do it, we're going to send you to the hospital. She said, I won't go. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
not difficult to deal with, negatively impacting everyone around her.
Yeah.
And a year later, she wrote to me and said, I want to come back. And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I said, I'll guide you remotely, but you're not going to tangle.
Yeah.
I never heard. That was my response. I never heard.
Wow.
We don't need that kind of thing going on. Someone can't take some direction. They're putting themselves in danger and negatively affecting everyone. Let's come back to this idea about electrolytes, coffee, tea, etc. There are people, including doctors, who say, "Oh, it's perfectly fine to consume those things because you're still." Now, most of you probably have heard this term now because of the ketogenic diet, but if you're not familiar with it, being in ketosis means the body's running on ketones, which are a byproduct of fat metabolism. Okay, and so the ketogenic diet. Well, yeah. Let me back up. So, how do you stay in ketosis? Well, as long as you're not consuming carbohydrates or much protein, you stay in ketosis. So you can.
Can you run out of ketones?
Can you run out?
Yeah.
But it would be hard to do. You would have to have no fat, and there's a word for people that have no body fat. They're called skeletons.
What's the longest somebody could fast, water only fast?
So the longest fast in history was 382 days, longest recorded fast.
That's incredible.
More than a year, yeah.
And he probably could have went longer, honestly.
I don't know. I don't remember the details. Personally, I would never fast anyone more than 381 days, so I don't know. I wouldn't do that. A little joke there, but 382. I think that's green. 381 is enough. My longest client was a young man. He was 29, I think, years old. He was morbidly obese since he was like 10 or 11 years old. Okay, he was a super fat kid. He grew up. He never lost the weight. By the time I met him. I met him on a lecture tour. He was at a lecture and a full day seminar that I did. But it turned out he was actually close friends with the woman who organized the events. And so I was there. This was in the UK. I was there in London. I was there for about a week, and I saw him 2 or 3 more times. In fact, he actually gave me a ride when I was leaving her place north of London. He gave me a ride into town to catch my next flight or train or whatever. I don't remember what it was because it's been some years. I got to know this guy pretty well. So he was, I want to say, over 200 pounds at about 5'6", 5'7". A lot of extra weight. He fasted for 18 and a half weeks, 4.5 months. Just water. Okay. The plan was 42 days. And on the 42nd day, he said to me, I feel great. I want to keep going. I'd like your guidance, but I'm going to keep going with or without.
Did he stay at Tanglewood the whole time, or he was doing this from home?
He did this remotely. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. What was he doing? He wasn't working, or he's still working at the same time?
No, you have to be resting. Yeah, you have to be resting.
That's incredible.
Yeah, he was
So
resting.
even 18 weeks, you got to be resting like the whole time.
4.5 months.
Wow.
I mean, again, that's unusual. I fast people all the time, where we're talking about a 10-week process, including their feeding. This is just the fast.
So there's no like light stretching. It's just laying in bed.
You can do light stretching.
Light stretching. Okay.
Light stretching. What you don't want to do is anything that requires strength and energy.
Okay.
Again,
but you can stretch the spine, move the spine.
Absolutely. If you've ever seen a cat or dog get sick enough, a cats typically won't fast for more than 3 to 5 days. It's because of the way their liver works and the fact that we're feeding them crap they shouldn't be eating. I think it will go longer. But cats won't do more than 3 to 5 days usually. Dogs, a large dogs have been known to fast for up to months at a time. Big dogs. What they'll do is they'll lay in one spot. They won't do anything. They'll close their eyes and just rest as much as they can. But occasionally they'll stretch or change position because it's uncomfortable if you lay in one position the whole time. So people are going to move around, but you don't want to be really doing things you don't need to do. Okay, that's the objective. He started with stage 4 testicular cancer, this young man. When he was finished, there was no treatment. And we've seen this over and over again. People often
think how many lives we could have saved with fasting. Just think about, I'm thinking about this famous actor who died from testicular cancer, and he was in his 30s, I think. So crazy.
Right. Well, and all the other forms. We've worked with every kind of cancer you can imagine.
What about like brain tumors?
Well, yeah. I have a client who was diagnosed with one of the most deadly forms of cancer. It's a specific type of brain tumor. Her mother and her only sister both died with the same cancer after getting medical treatment. And after they were gone, she was diagnosed with the same thing. And she saw an oncologist who said, this is what you need to do. And she said, yeah, my mother and sister both did that, and they're gone. I think I won't do that. And she came and fasted with me at Tanglewood instead. I recommended she do 26 days, and she insisted on only doing 21. But she was told that without treatment, she had months to live. It's now been 6 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, perfectly fine. Our body.
Bravo. That's incredible.
Yeah. Now, I think there's a couple. So let me come back. We were talking about ketosis, right?
Okay. Yeah, let's go to ketosis.
So you can take electrolytes and be in ketosis. You can drink coffee or tea and be in ketosis. And so some people say it's perfectly fine. You could eat 5 pounds of lard and be in ketosis. The objective is not simply to be in ketosis, because ketosis isn't where the benefits come from. Okay, the benefit of being in ketosis is that we store most toxins in body fat, and ketones are a byproduct of fat metabolism. So if we're in ketosis, it means we're running on fat, and that's good because we're going to detoxify faster that way. But it's not simply being in ketosis. That's not the goal. What people don't realize is that when we're fasting, we're actually in a different physiological state altogether. Okay, what I call fasting physiology. Everything changes. It's not the same thing. And let me give you a couple of examples what I mean. As you may be aware, according to the American Medical Association, and it depends, these kinds of ranges, all medical ranges for electrolytes, for everything, sugar, all these are human determined. They're made up by people. And so if you go from, in the US, the ranges for electrolytes vary from state to state, even from lab to lab. So some lab, we have our clients measure their sodium, potassium, and chloride levels before they start to make sure they're in a healthy range. But the range given by the lab is different from place to place. So I've had some people say, well, look, they said my sodium's too low. I'm like, well, if you'd gotten that in the next town, your range would be perfectly fine, okay? The number's fine, it's okay. It's just that someone said, no, it should be higher than that. Probably not. But what's considered in the US, the healthy range for blood sugar is between 70 and 100. And it's a measure of the concentration of glucose in your bloodstream, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We see people all the time. Right now, today, we probably have 10, 12 clients, blood sugar below the normal range, and they're perfectly fine. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. Because I illustrate. We've been where we are now for coming up on 13 years. Prior to moving to the site, I think it's 13. Prior to moving, maybe it's 12. Prior to moving to the site, we were at a place down the road, 5, 10 kilometers maybe. For 2 sessions, I forget. Anyway, that was a small place. I didn't have space for a lot of clients. Now I've built a lot of rooms. We can now take, again, we'll have 30 people there at a time. We can actually house 34, but we often have people that have a private room, which is the case now. So we had maybe 8 or 9 clients fasting, all we could hold there. And I take you guys, I had measured everyone's blood, all their vital signs: blood pressure, pulse, temperature, blood sugar. We measure blood oxygen saturation, body fat, muscle mass, and how much water is in the body, and weight every day. Sugar is usually once a week, unless it's out of the range. So I've done everyone's numbers, and now I've got everyone sitting in a circle, and I'm going through them with everyone there so everyone can learn from what's happening for each person. And I come to a guy, I'm looking at his numbers, I'm like, okay, so your